Okay, this is my fifth and last speech of this series, and today's speech is a persuasive speech, and I'd like to explain to you what net neutrality is, because you probably may not know, and why you should care about what it is and about having it. Net neutrality means that your internet service provider, are you okay? Okay. That your internet service provider shouldn't mess with your content. And to use an analogy of like shipping boxes on UPS, UPS should be able to maybe charge you different or have something to say about how many boxes you ship and how heavy they are, but as long as the content isn't dangerous or illegal, they shouldn't really care what's in the box. And recently, there have been some Supreme Court decisions and FCC goings-on and stuff about net neutrality. It's been in the news a little bit. And one of the reasons for this is that some large internet service providers, especially when they are also content providers or content carriers, say your cable companies, your Comcasts, and so on, they have some opinions about what they'd like you to do on their network and what they wouldn't like you to do on their network. And there's some reasons for that. So, as far as why you should care, if you have, say, a cable modem connection, and on that cable modem connection you, say, like to stream movies via Netflix, keep in mind that your cable company might rather you pay them to watch a movie on HBO. And so they'd like the right maybe to either interfere with your streaming of that movie from Netflix or charge Netflix for access to their customers, just the same way they charge other television networks if they want carriage on their cable plan. They're like, well, we're used to doing business that way, why shouldn't we continue to do business that way? Only that isn't traditionally how the internet has worked. There's an expression that sort of goes with the internet and some other things related to that. It's called the internet should be free as in speech, but not necessarily free as in beer. In other words, you should be able to get the content you want, run the applications you want. It's supposed to be a network that transports your packets and doesn't really care what's in them. It doesn't necessarily mean, what some people have taken it to mean, that they can download 37 terabytes for $19.95 a month. And then, oh, I got an 8 megabit connection for my cable provider, so I'm going to fire up BitTorrent and let that sucker run wide open 24 hours a day. Well, you know, that's not really doable because their business model can't sustain that. So the, quote, unlimited usage plan has kind of actually been the enemy of consumers in some respect, in that the ones that try and take advantage of it create a condition where the provider has a lot of incentive to figure out some way to reduce the overall usage so that they can manage their network and run it as cheaply as they want to run it. And so restrictions on what applications you can run have actually been used as a proxy for telling you that that unlimited connection isn't really unlimited. Because, you know, they sell you a connection, they say it's so much a month, and oh yeah, download all you want. Well, unless it's more than this. But they don't really want to come out and say that. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, some other applications that this could be an issue for. You know, let's say that you get DSL from AT&T, who's your phone company. And they might like to have your long-distance business also, but you use, say you use Skype or Magic Jack or one of these other VoIP providers, and you want to make your long-distance calls on that. Well, there's kind of a natural tension there where, you know, your other provider might rather have that money, and so what if they started blocking those applications so that you couldn't use the VoIP provider of your choice, but had to use their VoIP service? And that would be back to sort of, I don't know how many people remember what I'll call the walled gardens of the CompuServes and Genies and other information services that came before the internet, where, you know, yes, there was a lot of interesting content there, but it was only the content they put there for you, and that was all you could do. And that's not really the internet that we've kind of grown to know and love over the last, you know, 10, 15 years or so. So, you know, what can you do about this? You can demand a neutral connection when you buy service from a provider. Now, one issue we have is that there's, you know, not as many providers as there used to be. There's still a fair number of small providers out there, but a huge chunk of the market is being concentrated into your large cable companies and your DSL providers. And they have a lot more market power than used to be the case. And what makes it even more of a problem is that they tend to be vertically integrated. They tend to also either be in the content business or be, in some complicated relationship with somebody else who's in the content business. Either they're owned by Disney or own some TV stations or various other things, so that they have a stake in you consuming some content in preference to others. And so when we talk about net neutrality, what we're really saying is that they shouldn't be allowed to let their other business entrants influence how they provide your basic internet service. That's kind of that whole monopoly power thing of, when you have a vertically integrated business that's in multiple parts of the space, can they use their market power in one area? They're your internet provider. So they use that to go consume my content instead of these other people's content. Now, they've had some problems of their own, the various internet providers have, that have caused some of this behavior also. One of the most famous things that they've blocked over time has been BitTorrent. And sometimes they will take the approach of saying, oh, well, this is because all of the content that people are downloading over BitTorrent it's illegal, it's copyrighted movies and music and so on. But that isn't really the problem that's caused them to interfere with BitTorrent, because they don't really necessarily care if you're downloading movies or music. Now, unless they get notified that you have been and they have to stop you, that's one thing. But what they care about is that this application is very aggressive in how much it uses of their network. And that's back to that whole problem with the unlimited usage model, in that there were many conventional applications that, yes, maybe you stream movies, but you're only using bandwidth when you're actually watching the movie. And not everybody watches movies all the time, 24/7, so the usage sort of averaged out, and it was okay and didn't cause too much trouble. But then people run a protocol that not only lets them download things to watch, lets them download things while they're not watching it, and serves things to other people, so that now it can keep your connection going 24 hours a day. And so it sort of broke that model of, let's sell everybody unlimited and hope they don't use it. So the providers have felt compelled to do something to reduce the usage, and it's also in their interest if they not only reduce your usage, but push your usage to things that are internal to their network. Because most internet providers that are, say, like a cable company, they have a certain sunk cost. They've already paid to run the wires down the street, and other than maintenance, they're not really spending any more on that. Now, when you download videos from YouTube, they have to then go get wholesale bandwidth from some other internet provider in order to reach out to wherever those videos are stored, bring them into their network so they can send them to you. And that's a variable cost for them that goes up the more you use. Whereas if you're, say, consuming video from a server they host, they own the wire, they own the server, it's pretty much sunk cost. It doesn't change too much with your usage. So, to sum it up, the quote free internet, which in fact I think it doesn't really mean that you don't pay for it, but it means that it's open and that people can craft new applications whenever they feel like it. I mean, let's remember, in 1990, there was an internet. There was no World Wide Web. Everything that everybody thinks is the internet today didn't exist 20 years ago, even though the internet, the basic internet protocol, had existed for almost another 20 years before that. But, one guy over in Switzerland, Tim Berners-Lee, just said, gee, I've got this new idea. I'll let people put pictures and text on the page together and click links and go around and look at other things. And that's pretty much, when people think of the internet today, they're not thinking of the underlying thing. They're thinking of the World Wide Web. And now there are other, instant messaging applications and streaming video. Nobody really thought much about streaming video in 1990. I mean, it wasn't something you could do over a dial-up connection. Who knows what the application of tomorrow will be? But if we all wind up boxed into little walled gardens, then when the application of tomorrow arrives, it may not work on your network, because your provider won't have decided to let you have access to that unless you pay an extra fee, or the folks that came up with that software pay an extra fee. And that could easily choke out the innovation that's made the internet what it is today. So the The bottom line is, if you're out there shopping for an internet connection sometime in the future, everybody in this room already has a connection, it doesn't have to worry about it, but there may come a time when you're out there looking for a connection. If you have a choice of providers, you should choose the one that will provide you a more neutral connection, that won't interfere with your content. Even if you have to pay a little more for the service, it'll be worth it. And that's my speech. Yeah.